Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
What's up, guys? I'm Ace.
This is RB3.
And we just came out of Alita Battle Angel, the new Robert Rodriguez movie that is hitting theaters now. It is probably the buzziest film so far of 2019, I'm sorry. So,
Well, More Than Glass? You say More Than Glass?
Well, yeah, I would say as far as marketing wise, I saw a lot of marketing for Alita Battle Angel, and you're going to hear our thoughts on this movie starting right now. I want to start with general thoughts, Mr. Robert Butler. What did you think of this movie, man?
Well, you know, it's crazy. When you look at, a lot of people, when you look at movies, it's the divide between the storytelling, the narrative, and the form, the content, the visuals, you know, the spectacle. And, you know, a lot of times, a lot of people criticize the spectacle as just being fluff and not really having a lot of substance. And that's true for a lot of movies. That's true for a lot of James Cameron's movies, frankly. And James Cameron is obviously a producer and writer for this. But I personally, you know, for me, when I watch movies, I embrace what I embrace. You know, it's the same thing with music, how you can listen to music and you could like the instrumental, or you could like the lyricism, or you could like the message, or you could take away from whatever you want to take away from it. What I took away from Alita Battle Angel is a really good time, man. For me, this was a highly visual, highly stylized movie. Salute to Robert Rodriguez. This is his highest budget film by far.
Yeah.
But he really took advantage of the CGI, the technology. We saw it in 2D, so I don't know how it was presented in 3D. But
We saw it in 2D because I needed it to be in 2D.
Nah.
Refuse to watch 3D movies. Never gonna do that.
But I definitely want to check it out again on 3D. Because
Yeah.
it seemed like they had a lot of shots that were designed, you know, specifically for the 3D experience. So I really dug it. I actually took a lot of enjoyment from this movie.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with my general thoughts. I actually dug it a lot too, and I know there's obviously gonna be issues with a movie like this, a very visually spectacle type movie. But my biggest takeaway from the movie is what I consider to be the most important part of anime, and what makes anime so popular is the world building. And I really do feel like Robert Rodriguez successfully was able to adapt the world of this manga. And I think that's probably the most important part of adapting a source material like a manga, like an anime, is creating the world building. Now, this takes place, I believe, 2563, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
is what they said.
That's a big jump. When movies take that big of a jump, I'm like, all right, like you got to
Hundreds of years in the future.
Yeah, I don't think that's a little optimistic for human survival at this point. Yeah.
But I'm a massive fan, and so are you, of the cyberpunk genre.
Yeah.
And this really picks and chooses each little thing from each cyberpunk genre, whether it be Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell, Altered Carbon. I saw a little bit of Altered Carbon in there.
I haven't checked that show
Altered
out.
Carbon is very similar because they have the cloud cities where the one percenters live and the super rich people live, and then everyone else lives at the bottom on Earth. So they have that same concept. But they also have concepts like cyborgs and androids fighting in wars. That's from Blade Runner. Remember Roy Batty? He fought in an intergalactic war.
Right.
And they would use these cyborgs as weapons to kind of do their dirty work as far as fighting wars. So that's like a big theme from Blade Runner. Other themes from Ghost in the Shell, like the hacking inside people. Because we saw the main bad guy, Nova. Yeah. He was hacking inside Mahershala Ali's character. But this movie has all that cyberpunk genre aesthetic inside of the movie, and it deals and balances it very well. I found that to be the most enjoyable, but I feel like that's because I like the cyberpunk stuff. But let's go with the story. What do you think story-wise? Because the story centers around Alita and her basically falling from heaven, essentially getting her name Battle Angel. And then her kind of connecting with Christoph Waltz, and Christoph Waltz taking her in and fixing her almost as if it's a replacement for his daughter that he lost. That entire storyline within her character. What do you think of Alita herself and Rosa Salazar as Alita?
I mean, yeah, her character was cool. I mean, again, it's the same thing as Harry Potter, same thing as Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. The chosen one narrative that we see a lot of times. There are of course other sci-fi movies that deal with a futuristic war kind of thing, that like Edge of Tomorrow, but that one has a much different narrative structure, and a much different type of story than something like Alita Battle Angel. So, but the presentation of the story is what makes this movie different. So for me, like if you care a lot about story, care a lot about narrative, care a lot about character development. This might not be the most ideal movie to watch for you at home, but if you're somebody who goes into big sci-fi blockbuster action movies, this is cream of the crop in terms of visuals. You know?
Yeah, well, the thing that stood out to me was the idea of her being reborn into a new world, and if you bring someone into this new world as far as a new being, how is that reaction going to be? So the idea of her kind of being a child during the first half of this movie, essentially kind of opening up, what's this, what's that, and her kind of discovering.
It's like a coming of age story.
Coming of age, but also kind of like the idea of someone like Alita being born into this kind of corrupt world and still being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, literally, and still being very kind and very noble and having those human qualities that aren't necessarily human anymore, right? Because it's that whole idea of, are we born into this world corrupt, or are we born into this world good-natured or ill-natured?
Yeah.
So the fact that they chose to go with the positive angle is kind of what sells her as a character, because she's so kind-hearted and she's so loving and she wants to give everyone a hug. Like she's hugging everyone. She's like hanging out with little dogs. Like her kind-heartedness is essentially what's at the heart of this movie, literally. And then the story for me with the livers is the concept of like the 1%ers live in the higher up, and then they use sports as a way to like subdue the population.
That's real life.
And then you have Mahershala Ali as the Roger Goodell.
Yeah, you said
I literally turned to you. I'm like, yo, he's playing Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
But like in the 25, 36 or something like that. Him kind of being like the corrupt commissioner, working for the corporate overlords.
Yeah.
But you know what really stood out to me besides all the sports stuff was the whole like no gun thing, and the fact that he said no guns because they don't want an uprising. They don't want like the people to get their own power and fight back against the corrupt 1% or the corrupt government. I thought that was interesting. I was like, that's kind of like a pro-gun message as far as like everyone should have access to guns, because if not, you know, they have more control over you. I thought that was interesting. And I thought the whole like there's no police, we just pay crazy people it's like to kill the bad guys as far as like bounty hunters go, because it's like, oh, we just do bounty hunters, you know, if you just want to hunt some people, you're allowed to do that and we'll pay you, because we don't want to pay a police to do that. What do you think of that whole political aspect of the movie? Because there is a political aspect as far as the guns and as far as the cops.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's all part of the overall analogy that they're setting up with the, I mean, it's literally people ascended above.
Yeah, it's like a heaven.
Yeah, and you know, you can take religious
That's
connotations
true.
from that as well. But yeah, it's, you know, it all plays into. I mean, it's a very anime thing to incorporate those kind of stuff. So I'm glad they addressed those issues. In terms of execution, I don't know if they like necessarily followed up on a lot of these storylines necessarily the best until the end. But it's clear that they're setting up a franchise, setting up sequels and stuff like that. So.
Let's kind of go into that. Let's finish up with a little bit of our negatives and then our overall opinions and feelings of this movie. That's the negative for me. The negative is very much like this is all so much set up to the point that it almost could have worked better as a series, in my opinion. Maybe like a Netflix show, like 8 episodes long or something like that. Because you could really tell that they were like trying so hard to cut down even more, even though this is all set up for a future series of movies, right? I think that's a little bit of a negative for me. I also found that I told you after the movie, it never really wanted to end. They're really, like the ending of the movie, I was like, oh, if it ends here, it's good. And then it keeps going. And it was like, all right, if it ends here, it's fine. We can end it here. And then it keeps going. And you're like, all right, let's find a way to wrap this story up. And I get that you want to set up for future movies, but let's focus on this movie first. That's probably my biggest negative. What about you?
I mean, yeah, just the overall, the story, I've said it multiple times in this review, like, the story is not, like...
You thought it was predictable?
Yeah, it's predictable. It's traditional, to say the least. Like, it definitely falls in line with the traditional kind of story narratives. I also think, like, the way, she's, like, a female heroine, but a lot of time in the movie, she's fawning over this dude, this boyfriend character, Hugo, yeah. So a lot of that's a little cheesy. It's, it's clear that the script was written in like 2001 or something like that. But otherwise,
I think it actually was written in 2000.
Yeah, no, but otherwise, I think, but yeah, I mean, all of that, I kind of
forgave.
forgave, because I again, it just blew my mind spectacle wise.
Yeah, spectacle wise, man. This movie is action scene after action scene after action. Like the roller derby stuff was cool.
Yeah.
The fight scenes were dope. The bar scene was fun. Yeah. Like there's a lot of cool action scenes that really get audiences involved and enthralled into what's going on screen. Because action scenes are actually, like you said, it's an art form. It's very difficult to do. So props for Robert for doing
Creativity.
that.
I mean,
yeah,
definitely one of the most creative directors. And you can check out the mini podcast we just talked about.
Absolutely.
Robert Rodriguez last week. The creativity that exudes.
Let's finish up with a recommendation. How highly or not highly do you recommend this movie?
Yeah, I personally, if you, like I said, if you like spectacle, if you like genre, genre movies. I hate using that word because it's the new B movie term, But if you like sci-fi, if you like action, and particularly if you like technology and spectacle, this is the movie for you. I highly recommend it on that front, and I'm definitely going to see it again. But if you're someone who's more inclined to like narrative and character development, you could probably rent it or something. Okay. Check it out on home video, something like that.
Interesting. I highly recommend this movie. I think this movie is a lot of fun. I think what sets it apart is taking all those cyberpunk elements and kind of making it its own. Like I said, it has a lot of Blade Runner, it has a lot of Ghost in the Shell, it has all those kind of aesthetics as far as cyberpunk goes, but I really like how it kind of makes it its own. And again, Alita is just such a kind-hearted character who also likes to murder a lot. Yeah. But it was kind of...
I mean, everybody in this movie...
Yeah, everyone is like taking people's heads and cutting people in half, and I'm like, yo! You could tell Robert Rodriguez was like, R-rated, and they're like, nah, PG-13, we can make it work.
Well, he does the same thing he does in From Dusk Till Dawn, where all the blood is green instead of...
Exactly,
red, so.
Exactly. But either way, I recommend this movie. I think it's a lot of fun. Obviously, it's an adaptation from an anime, from a manga, so that's always a difficult thing to do. But because it's so cyberpunk, I think that's why I connected to it so much. And yeah, shout out to Robert Rodriguez for making something that feels like, you know what it felt to me like? It's a lot of setup, but it felt like the first Hunger Games to me, where it introduces a heroine, it introduces a bigger story, the bigger villain is President Snow, and then eventually you're going to get to like her versus President Snow, right? Yeah. That's what it felt like to me.
I think Hunger Games is better.
Absolutely. Hunger Games it definitely has a more subtle take on socio-political aspects versus this one is very much on the nose.
Yeah.
But either way, I dug it, guys, so I highly recommend you guys check this out over the weekend and let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments down below, and subscribe to First Cut. We're going to be giving you a lot more reviews, and obviously the Meaning of Podcast is going to be on this channel as well, so make sure you check that out.
Yeah.
Anything else, RB3?
I'm chilling, man.
All right, for the meaning of, for First Cut, that is our thoughts on Alita Battle Angel. Once again, guys, I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And we are peacing out. Peace out, guys.